Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Sporting Max. Today we're joined by former Melbourne United Championship player, current Melbourne Tiger in the NBL 1, and Sportsbet brand ambassador, Felix Von Hofe. Welcome to the podcast, Felix. It's amazing to have you on. How you going?
Good, mate. Look at you, just in the cold shirt, the headphones. I've just come in the hoodie and an old St Mary's Gales cap. I've been showing up.
Thanks for coming on, Felix. I really appreciate it. I'd like to start off with your childhood and what growing up was like for you.
Yeah, well, I was really lucky. I come from a really good family, so we were always well looked after, that sort of stuff. And mum's a nurse, dad's an engineer, so they've got the brains.
Yeah.
And somehow I missed out on any of that. But I was made tall and gangly, which was a good recipe for basketball. So they got me a basketball hoop in the backyard, went to Middle Park Primary, sort of got into it then, was never hugely into it through primary school, was never very good, that sort of stuff. But then sort of had a bit of a growth spurt once I hit high school, started getting into it a lot more. And then from then on, it just ended up basketball sort of became for a long time, the be all and end all. So, you get so obsessed with your sport. I was like that at times where, I didn't go out that much when I was in high school. And I look back, I've definitely made up for that now. But no, I was definitely, I definitely had a really good childhood.
So as a kid, I know you mentioned before you were into basketball, but not as much as you were, in your high school years as a kid. What type of player were you around the age of sort of 15? And, what was your role in the team?
Well, 15, so I was always a taller player that could shoot the ball. And that used to be a really rare thing.
Yeah.
So it was even at 6'6" and that sort of stuff, I was fairly tall at that sort of age of 15, but there wasn't that many specialist shooters. And then Steph Curry came along and everyone could shoot the ball. So I was no longer special. But no, I was definitely a shooter from outside, and that was the way that I grew up. It was the way that I made a lot of teams. And I think even at that age of 15, I realized, like, you know what, I'm not the most athletic guy. Can't jump that high. So I'm going to have to learn some sort of skill. I'm not a great ball handler. So I'm going to have to learn some sort of skill to be able to make these teams that maybe I don't have the total overall skill package to necessarily make. But then because I was an elite shooter, I had that one sort of tool that allowed me to get onto all these sort of teams.
So like you mentioned, those teams, I believe you represented Australia at the under-17s and under-19s level, and also representing multiple Victorian teams. What does your representing your country or a state team mean to you?
Oh, amazing. Absolutely amazing. I feel so bad for the kids who've missed out with COVID on going to nationals. I look back, I was lucky enough to go to the 2 world championships and a whole bunch of nationals. And when I look back, I probably look, because the world championships are very serious. Everyone's there. There's a lot of scouting. There's a lot of prep. It's, everyone's nervous. Whereas the nationals, it's a lot more fun. The guys are staying up till 4 a.m. the night before the game playing cards. It's a lot looser. And it sort of helps. But in our days, Vic Metro would just dominate everyone. So we could roll in, and the Northern Territory didn't really have much chance of stopping us whether we were playing cards late at night or not. So, but now it's actually a lot more even. So now, New South Wales, and it's you see Queensland winning at times. So it is a lot more even on the state level. But the World Championship sort of stuff, I've got Nikola Jokic.
Yeah.
So Nikola Jokic was playing for Serbia, and he was the backup center on the end of their bench in under-19s. So their main center got injured, and our scout said, "Go at this guy. He sucks. He's terrible." Went out there. He was terrible. He could barely catch the ball. We were like, "Just go at this guy. Go at this guy." I'm watching the NBA draft 4 years later, and he gets picked up, and then all of a sudden he's winning the NBA MVP. So nobody knows how Nikola Jokic turned from being one of the worst players.
World Championship experiences. What's it like at the Worlds, and obviously with fierce competition?
It's really cool. Like, obviously the team that everyone looks out for at that sort of stuff is Team USA, because you've got a whole bunch of guys where, you've seen them on Hoop Mixtape and YouTube videos and all of those sort of things. So it's like in my the main guy in the under-17s was Jabari Parker. He was number one ranked player, Gatorade Player of the Year in the States. So you'd seen all these videos online, and you come out there. And I remember I matched up. The World Championships themselves are a little nerve-wracking because everyone's, for a lot of guys, just putting that green and gold on, there's a lot of pressure. You've got, when you play the Nationals, there's not necessarily a lot of people watching. They'll just check the scores, and a lot of people stream these games. So it's definitely it's the biggest stage that anyone's played on at that level. And there's also a lot of people watching. Guys want to go to college. They want to do all these other things.
You at just the start of that Eastern Washington College, and your sort of 4 years at college.
Yeah, so Eastern Washington, God, I always tell people that even if they're not playing a sport, go over to college for a semester, a quarter, whatever it is, because you might be a bit too young to be watching the movie American Pie, but you never know what kids watch these days. But it's so stereotypical American, and it's such an amazing experience compared to anything that you would ever get over here. And there's, things that we can't say on this podcast that go on over there that make it a very enjoyable time. But it's just, I couldn't speak more highly of the experience from a basketball standpoint. Like you look at, there was games where we played Indiana in front of, 13,000 people in this Coliseum style stadium where it's the noise is deafening. Yeah. And then you come over here and you play professionally, and obviously we'll get into that later, but you just can't compare it with the atmosphere of where you've got, you might have a family sitting there eating chicken wings at an NBL game, just sort of being quiet, whereas it's a bunch of angry college kids yelling whatever they want at a college game. And the cool thing about it, you'd go to class with the people that are in the crowd. You'd have so many connections.
And you got the interactions with the crowd. It's not just, they're strangers that you see in the crowd from on the court.
Exactly. So it made it a really cool experience, especially like playing on the road was a different beast because and especially someone like me that likes to talk, yell, and get a bit up and about. I was always a bit of a beacon for other teams' crowds to go at, which was fine. I enjoyed it. But at home, that's one of the most special things about college basketball that I remember is playing in a game, or you're never going to get that experience anywhere else where you're in this sort of in the middle of this place where everyone you care about, obviously your family's not there because they're over, but all your friends are in the crowd, your professors, your teachers, everyone that you have, the people who run the bar downtown, that everyone comes together for this game. And it's a really special community thing to have. And I just don't think we have that anywhere over here.
So when you came back to Melbourne, how did you find adjusting back to Australian basketball compared to that college basketball environment?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing for me, because once I finished college, I sort of said to myself that I wanted to take the media route and do the stuff that I'm doing now. But I thought, you know what, you've got to give basketball a crack and do it for a little bit. So, because you do all that for 4 years, getting yelled at by college coaches. You're like, might as well get paid for it. So I came over, and the transition was definitely like, I think the speed of the game is similar, but it's just the physicality of professional basketball at any level is such a step up. Well, you look at a guy like Dave Barlow, and it's even someone like Chris Golding that doesn't necessarily look super strong, but when you come from a college environment, you come over, this guy will just go straight through your chest, and you're like, a muscle in his body. What is that? What's happening here? You just they have that old man strength, and they're smart, and I think that's the thing that's hardest to catch up with. But it was I remember my debut game against Adelaide. We had Craig Moller wasn't having a great game, so he came out. I went in and I put up 6 3-point shots in I think it was a 7-minute span and missed them all. So I went 0 for 6 on my debut, which I think would go down as the worst debut on NBL record. Wow. I don't think anyone's missed that many consecutive shots in such a small span of time. So at least I do hold that record. But yeah, it was an interesting thing when I came back because I was definitely interested in doing the media more than the basketball side of things. And a lot of guys, when they go over to college, end up thinking that, you get exposed to so many more different avenues of, I did a bit of journalism stuff over there, a bit of media stuff at college. And I was like, you know what, the same thrill that I get, it's like with you love hosting this podcast, you do a great job, and you get that sort of thrill when you host it, the same as what you would in a basketball game. And I started finding that, when that red light on the camera turns on for a racing broadcast or any sort of broadcast, I get that same thrill that I would in a basketball game, but I'm not sweating and I'm not getting hit. So
and you got to take out the injuries and things like that.
Oh, I'm not getting, unless I fall off my chair, I'm not getting injured, or some drunk bogan throws a beer can at me from the back of the crowd. That's probably the only way I'm getting injured, which I won't write that off. It may happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I found that. So I was definitely towards the back end of my time at Melbourne, I was ready to try other things, but I definitely, I loved every minute of it.
So how did you get that opportunity with Melbourne United for that season? You know, coming into a star-studded team, Chris Golding, Dave Barlow, like you mentioned before, Craig Moller, I think it was David Anderson, Casper Ware, and obviously Casey Prather.
Yeah, no, I was very lucky to be able to get a gig there. I'd sort of come back and train with them in all of my off seasons, and Melbourne United did a really good job with that. I know other teams did that, but it was Victoria had a lot of guys coming back from college.
Yeah.
So Melbourne United did a really good job of getting everyone in and having them train with the team, sort of, in that, because it matched up pretty well with the off-season period. So you'd have these scrimmages where there'd be 6-7 guys that were back from college. Yeah. In between freshman, sophomore, junior year that would always come back and play. So you sort of developed a relationship. And then, as soon as I came back, we sort of worked it out pretty quickly. I definitely didn't want to come after living 4 years in the States. I didn't want to go to Perth or, one of those weird states like Adelaide. So I was definitely keen to stay in Melbourne. I wasn't really too concerned with money or anything. I wasn't going to hunt a better deal elsewhere. I know Sydney was an option, but then I definitely just wanted to be around family for the first time in a long time. So yeah, it was a pretty simple one for me.
Can you describe to me your championship experience in that 2017-18 season?
Oh God, can I remember it after the celebration tonight? Look, I think the coolest part of that was that, and what made it so special was that everyone during the year, that the target was on our back. Yeah. And everyone was saying that, there was a period there where we lost 6-7 games in a row. And everyone was, they're done. Melbourne United are just buying a championship. So it was this really cool us versus them mentality. And I think the one thing that shone through was Chris Golding's leadership during all that sort of stuff, which I'd never experienced. I thought, surely this guy's he's just shooting threes, he's flopping, he's getting his selfies, that sort of thing. But I was shocked. And I always tell people that was the biggest shock for me that year was Chris Golding is one of the best leaders of a team that I've ever played with in my life. And it really amazed me, his ability to sort of interact with everyone and while being this sort of flamboyant character that the other teams hated, was so loved by his teammates, and also had that ability to lead. When he fires up, Melbourne fires up. And I think it was really good to see in the grand final series just go nuts. And the crowd's yelling at him and he's just cashing it. Got that. But then, that was cool. We get to the locker room after that, throwing the champagne all around. And that sort of stuff. So that's the best moments you'll get in sport. There's the moments of winning a championship, and then there's all so that euphoric feeling of being with your mates, like this is one of the best moments of your lives, going nuts, is sort of like a team dinner on steroids. Where you're all out there having fun, and that for me is always the best part of team sport, is that those camaraderie sort of events, and then you take that and you add a championship on top of it, then it just takes it to a whole nother level.
I remember reading and hearing in 2017-18 season, when Casey Prather went out, people and I think media outlets or something like that were saying, they're done. Casey Prather's gone, even though you still got Casper Ware, Chris Golding, and then he's bringing Felix, and it's like, hold on. And then he takes the bull by the horns and just comes in and just takes everyone by storm. And then obviously still, what a great man for him to stick around. He could have just left the team, but no, he decided to stick around for the championship.
For sure. Apparently the Felix we had wasn't good enough, so they had to bring in an NBA caliber. Carrick Felix who came in. But no, the Carrick came in, and Casey Prather as well is such a good guy. He got injured and was still, up on the sidelines. Sometimes with these imports, it's a do or die sort of league. They'll get hurt and they'll leave.
They'll take off. Yeah,
they'll leave. They're just
it's not their home country.
No, it's not their home country. Are they going to see these guys again? Probably not. Maybe, like a couple of my stupid cup photos. That's about it. But Carrick Felix, Casey was fantastic when he got hurt, and Carrick came in, and he knew that it was a star-studded team, And as much as he had NBA experience and he actually played in the NBA and he had the ability to score in pretty big numbers in the NBL, in my opinion, he came in and they said, your role is to just lock down on the defensive end. We've got Chris to score, we've got Casper to score. And for a guy like that to sit back and say, oh, you know what? Because when they're looking for jobs elsewhere, teams look at stats. So if he's willing to sacrifice scoring here and just be a defensive player, it could hurt your future job prospects, especially when you're coming from the NBA down to the NBL. You want to be putting up big numbers. So for him to do that, I thought was incredibly selfless. And then he got so connected to the group. Of course, even when Casey came back in, he was, he was still yelling, getting in fights in the crowd. I remember in Adelaide, I think it was game 4 when we were in Adelaide, game 4 or 5. But we were both sitting behind. I'd done my knee at that point, and we were both sitting in the stands. And these guys are yelling, and Carrick just gets up and starts yelling back at them. And security, I'm standing behind Carrick, hiding behind him there. But no, he was a fantastic. I think, and one of the keys to success in the NBL is getting imports in that are like that. Like Perth's done a great job with that. The character evaluation, because sometimes when you get journeymen that are bumped around from league to league, whether from Europe, from America, you can get some questionable characters. New Zealand, Glenn Rice, very unusual cat, very talented, but your team's not going to win with a guy like that in the locker room. And I hope he's not listening to the podcast because but getting guys like that is so integral to success. And it definitely was a massive, massive factor in the championship was Carrick Felix's selfishness.
So how did you then transition? I know you always wanted to go to that media side of sports, but how did you make the move after that season with United to get to that media side of sport?
Yeah, well, I sort of, there's a lot to be said on sometimes you just land on your feet. And I tell that to people a lot because, a lot of people say, geez, you got a pretty nice job. Like it's a very enjoyable job. That I get to do. I talk about racing and all these other things that other people out there would love to do as well, but just it's very hard to get those opportunities. There's not only so many of those jobs going around, and we live in a world now where it's like you're doing the best thing you can, which is starting your own podcast now, and you're going to have 1 million episodes by the time you get into the sort of workforce stuff. But no, once I finished, I finished without a plan. So I said, you know what, I wanted to get into media. And I woke up the next morning. I think, okay, well, damn. now I got to actually find a job. It's one of those things. You quit your job and then you find a job later. Usually you've got something lined up before you do that, but I'm not like that. I'm sort of, I just want to get straight into stuff. And luckily, Lauren Hanson, who works at the NBL, fantastic. One of the smoothest operators you will find in any business, Lauren Hanson. She's fantastic. But she gave me a call and said, Sportsbet are looking for someone to do their NBL videos, like the pre-game sort of ones. And I thought, this is huge. Of course, I remember watching Nathan Brown do those. So I went in and did a screen test, and I was so nervous for the screen test, I completely botched it. Completely, when I was standing there doing the thing, I was like messing up my words. I was like talking about, I think I was talking about footy at one point. I was going to do basketball, like messed it up completely. But then they said, you know what, we got no one else. there's no one else to do it. And then I jumped into it, and luckily, I was just nervous in there because I knew I really needed the job. I had no other sort of prospect there. I needed this job. And luckily I got it. And, from then on, I started getting better and better at that, feeling super confident with it. And it's like anything, the more you practice with it, the better you get. And then eventually I started doing a podcast as well with Sportsbet, and it just evolved to now where, I do pretty much everything. So, and then some other things within the business as well. So it's, you always look back at people that have opened doors for you. And I know that just that one phone call from Lauren opened up this entire, I'm all of a sudden on the Cup Day broadcast. Stuff like that. Like it's quite a quick, you link everything back, and it's quite amazing that, and I always tell that to people that are struggling in this industry, which is a really, really tough industry for work. You never know. Your phone could ring tomorrow. And it's an opportunity that could lead to something else, or it's also you never know who's watching sort of thing. Like it's, someone watching Derby Day and they think, oh, geez, he's energetic. We could use him on something like that as a network watching. Because obviously, as much as, you might have to drag me kicking and screaming out of Sportsbet because I never want to leave. You do have aspirations to go on and do network related things and, jump on the Today Show or something like that, something along those sort of lines. A bit of morning TV.
Yeah.
But yeah, you never know who's watching with that sort of stuff. And there's so many opportunities. And I was lucky that the opportunity that I had presented itself right when I needed it.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned your own podcast, the Trash Talk podcast with yourself and your friend, recent podcast guest, Peter Hawley. I've listened to it.
Hawley's got coming on this one as well.
Yeah, he's on.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he's still got in just before you too.
Everyone, Max.
Yeah. I've listened to it, but for the listeners out there, what's the show about and what's your favourite part about your own podcast?
Well, the interesting thing with that one is I've had to call an end to it. So there will be, and this is an exclusive for the Sporting Max podcast. I haven't put this out there yet, but it's a little bit time consuming for everything that I'm trying to do at the moment. So, and I sort of want to take a bit of a step back with the NBL and just enjoy it because I'm doing so much elsewhere with other things. I do kind of just want to enjoy watching the NBL and not having to sit there and critique players that I'm friends with, coaches that I like. And I think that personally, I have a connection with a lot of people in the NBL. And, I don't enjoy too much having to sit there. And we live in a hot take world where you've got to have an opinion to generate a headline and that sort of stuff. And sometimes that involves, saying things that aren't too friendly. And I just think it's not as much the way I wanted to go about it. So we are going to have a couple of other things on ESPN and a few other things in the works. But I think for Trash Talk, and you never know, maybe we'll bring it back with a friendlier version of me and I'll do it a bit later. But I think this season, we'll put it on ice because obviously we're very busy at Sportsbet and we've got a whole bunch of different things we're working on and stuff like that. So we'll be being replaced with another show that I'm doing. But unfortunately, that won't be an NBL one. Another one. So it is said, but maybe you never know. Maybe it comes back at some point, but it's just you got to put your priorities in different areas. And as the Sporting Max podcast, there's too much competition now. So what are we doing? You not only got our hosts on this show, you're taking our listeners as well. So.
Now the NBL 1 or the SC ABL. I mean, you've played at Dandenong, Kilseth, and now the Melbourne Tigers. Obviously, NBL 1's maybe a level below the NBL. Playing in this league, how do you find the competition?
I love it. I absolutely love it because for me, I've always played basketball in a high stress sort of environment. You're always looking to make the next team. When you're playing on a Friday night juniors, you're looking to make the state team. When you make the state team, you're looking to make the national team. You make the national team, you're looking to make college to NBL. So you got pressure on yourself. Every shot you miss, you're like, like that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
If you look at my stats in the NBL 1, I wasn't too concerned with missing from the 3-point line. I was just enjoying putting them up. So it was, I enjoyed for the first time last season, just going out there and you know what, if I have a bad game, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's, we just want to go out there and win, but there's no external pressure for me to perform because if I score 0 points or I score 100 points, it's not going to affect my job.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. I might get roasted in the group chat, but that's about it. But I love what they're doing with the NBL 1 because what it provides is all the games are streamed online, which is huge. There's highlights packages. It looks like a professional league, which for the most part it is. So when guys come and play in this league and they want to go to college, they have high quality film. Yeah. When imports come over, the league looks like the issue in Europe sometimes. You've got these leagues that are high level and guys are getting $300,000 to play in it, but there's volleyball lines on the court and there's a guy smoking a dart in the corner of the gym. Like it's a high level league, but there's just no professionalism to it. Whereas with the NBL 1, there's a lot of professionalism with it. And that's what Larry Kesselman's done. He's long has there been sort of a massive gap for players in Australia where unless you went to the AIS, you had, and I was lucky enough to do that. But unless you went to the AIS, there was no, you could play Big V, but no one was watching.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Whereas now you've got the NBL 1, which is so closely associated with the NBL that young guys can come into these teams and automatically, you look at Dyson Daniels was at Bendigo.
Yeah.
Josh Giddy was even considering, don't get me started on Josh Giddy. He was considering playing for Melbourne, jumping in last year for a couple of games.
Wow.
He's got a big connection with the club, which would have been, we might have got one more win. He may have jumped in there. But no, it's the professionalism for me is what stands out. And I love that it's provided a pathway for players to get noticed that may have been lost between the cracks.
You mentioned the AIS. What are the facilities like at the Australian Institute of Sport? And can you briefly touch on your time there?
Oh, they're amazing. I think the house parents had a handful with me. I know on my first night there, I was me and Mirko Jeric, who plays in the NBL now up at
Cairns Taipans.
Chasing me around the sort of the pod. Shut up. We've got rowers that have to get up at like 4 a.m. in the same building and stuff like that. But the cool thing about the AIS was you were playing against the best of the best in the country 3 times a day, every single day. You know, you'd be matching up with Dante Exum, you'd be playing against Mirko, stuff like this every single day. So it was such a good place to get better. And also to enjoy the Canberra nightlife. Mates over there made it because I turned 18 just as I went there. So it was sort of the perfect timing for me. Boots Heads in Canberra and a few other places. Everyone who went to the AIS has their sort of favourite memories of their first proper nights out being over there and with the weird Canberra locals. But no, the AIS as a whole was fantastic. It's sort of sad to see what it's turned into overall. Basketball has managed to hold on to a piece of the pie, and I think they do well with that NBA Global Academy. But you know, the rest of it, it's, you know, teams now, obviously, AS, that's the center of excellence. It's in the movie Zoolander. Sounds like something out of that, the center of excellence. But teams doing their own thing elsewhere. But there was a time there where the AIS was, I sort of got there right at the end of when we were probably the only, it was us, and then most other sports just did camps there. So we were the only ones really living there permanently in a pod of 6 guys, which would just get absolutely out of control. You know, I sort of digress here, but I remember me and Dante Exum, dishes stacked up in the house.
Oh, wow.
Like, man, I've never had to wash dishes. I'm not washing these dishes. So we took him to the shower and just started using the pressure washer on this massive stack of dishes. And there's stuff like that. Like, it's, you know, these memories. I remember Dante's scared of spiders, and I'm equally as scared, and no one else in the house is scared of spiders. I hear this massive noise at like 4 a.m. He's come running around, banging on my door. Spider. I was like, what are you doing here? What are you doing? I hate him just as much. So anyway, one of the guys ended up shooing the spider out the window with spray. And then I wake up in the morning and the spider's crawled around the house on the outside. It's coming to my window. And then it's in my place in the morning. So no, there was a lot of that. There was, you know, there's stuff where I remember I once said to Fabian Krislovich, who plays for the Jack Jumpers at the moment, he wanted a haircut. So he pulled the old, you know, put the clippers down to 0 and straight over it. So there was a lot of that sort of stuff that went on there, which made it a lot of fun. Like, I don't remember the practices. I don't remember us having to run lines because I kept my locker dirty, that sort of stuff. But I remember all those sort of moments, which made it really fun. And I think that is something that some of the kids miss out on these days.
Josh Giddy, like you said before, I mean, he's been incredible so far this NBA season. Only person at his age alongside LeBron James to record a double-double. What's it like to watch him go, you know, from the Melbourne Tigers like yourself to the NBA?
It's amazing. And look, I know Josh. I've known Josh growing up, like watched him as a kid running around because when I played sort of under 16s, he was in under 12s, or I think he was playing under 12s when he was much younger. And it's weird. I cannot wrap my head around the fact that this guy is playing so well. Because I just think of immature Josh Giddy, like trying to rebound for us and stuff. We were the under, we were the big dogs back then. I know how the tables have turned. The tables have turned now. But no, he's a fantastic kid. But when I saw that he was going to get drafted that high, I was a little bit concerned because I was like, okay, he's 18 years old. His body doesn't look like it's ready. The NBL is a huge step up. So the NBA is a huge step up physically from the NBL. Skill-wise, I think you can still, the space, and no one plays defense in the NBA, so it sort of helps. You can still put up some points, but I thought, God, on the defensive end, it's going to be tough. He's going to get out-muscled. And then he just comes out, and as many people over my life have proved, to make me an idiot. And just come out and dominate. You know, he's genuinely in a rookie-of-the-year conversation against guys that are 20 years old and 21 years old. And he's just turned 19, which, you know, it's incredible. I think that with all this Ben Simmons drama going on, we've finally got this, this shining light in the dark.
Yeah.
Dante, obviously, he doesn't have a spot at the moment, and really hoping that he can find one. I think he finds one before the season's out. He'll definitely find a home because he's too good of a defender to be out of the NBA for that long.
But he's had a lot of injuries too.
That's the hard
Dante.
thing. And, he's had a 30-point game in the NBA. He's proven that he's an NBA quality player.
And he's proved that in the Tokyo Olympics too.
That sort of stuff. And it's just, you look at him and he just throws himself around the court. Like every second possession, he's on the ground somewhere. And you can see how he gets injured so much, which is annoying. But the situation with the Rockets, they were he was dependent on John Wall getting traded.
Yeah.
And they couldn't find a trade because no one really wanted John Wall's contract. And then they were sort of left with, well, sorry, but we thought this was going to happen. So it's not like it wasn't that he underperformed and he got let go from Houston. It was just the NBA is a business, and it was a business decision that they had to get rid of the contract that would lose them the least amount of money, and they couldn't trade John Wall. So, yeah, but Josh Giddy, the sky's the limit. Like if he's doing this at 19, I can't imagine what he's going to be like once he gets to 21. Because the kid's a hard worker as well, and he's got a really good family behind him. I tweeted out the other day. I cannot wait till the American media. They like Crocodile Dundee. Wait till they get a hold of Warwick Giddy because that's the most thing out there at the moment.
Yeah. You mentioned the Melbourne Cup before. What was the day like for you yesterday from your perspective?
It was amazing. Absolutely amazing. So our broadcast booth was right behind the mounting yard. So we sort of look back, behind me is all the horses and walking around the yard, which I can tell you doesn't smell too good once you get to race 10. But no, it's amazing because I love big sporting events, like worldwide sporting events. And that's why I love the sort of theatre of racing so much, because there's nothing like it. The hairs, even when I was doing my sort of updates and previewing the Cup and talking about where the money's going and all that sort of stuff, I got the hair standing up at the back of my neck because it's like, man, as a kid, I've always watched this race. I've always loved this race. And now I'm sitting here, I never really got to go that much as a kid because I was always playing basketball. And now I'm sitting here with a microphone in my hand and I've got incentivized walking 5 meters away from me. I still think goes down as one of the greatest racehorses of all time by the time that horse is done. And then you've got Very Elegant and all these horses where it's like, there's about $50 million worth of flesh right over there. But no, it's just cool, when the bugle goes off for each race and they're playing the anthem before it and you're sort of sitting there previewing it. That was the most special. Like I enjoyed all the days that I do, but Cup Day for me is just there is something special about that. They say the race that stops the nation for a reason because it's just an unbelievable spectacle.
So who was a part of your broadcast team yesterday?
So it was Nigel Carmody. Nigel Carmody does a bit of footy with Channel 7 as well. So the hard thing was that COVID had actually ripped through. So with the exposure side, so originally, there was a couple of guys that were going to do the form side of things. Yeah. And then some of the other guys had to get the call up last minute because the exposure side. So it was Nick Ashman, Brent Zarafa, one of the best guys in racing there, and Michael Walker as well, who's an unbelievable jockey who's taken a year off at the moment. He'll be back in the saddle next year, but he's working with us on the broadcast this year, and he's been fantastic. Like him talking to James McDonald, just getting all those they were talking about when they, used to ride together. And I might be getting into the racing jargon here, but back when he had a 4-kilo claimer as an apprentice, and they ride together to the races, and now to see him win a Melbourne Cup like that, and the emotion. That's probably one touching on that last question. The emotion of that is just amazing. You look at these jockeys come; it's almost every one of them is crying. J-Mac could barely get a word out after the Cup. Yeah, that's so special to him. When you're a jockey, winning the Melbourne Cup is the pinnacle. And it's, lucky for him, his horse was scratched. Unfortunately, it stepped on a nail. The horse was fine, but his horse was scratched in the next race. So he's actually able to sit back and enjoy it for a moment. But no, it's, very, 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 very special.
But what those jockeys, put themselves through in the saunas and not eating and starving themselves, it's insane.
Amazing. Like it's, our major racing guide, Sportsbet, Simon Marshall, won 16 Group 1s. And he tells these just horror stories of, and times have changed a lot since when SD was a jockey. Yeah. That was a long time ago. The practices are a lot friendlier. Yeah. Still very tough. Yeah. But, he speaks of lying under the table at a restaurant because he couldn't stand to look at the food because he wasn't going to be eating anything because you're on such a low calorie diet. Whereas now, there's dietitians and all that sort of stuff that help these guys. But the saunas and jockeys are an interesting breed, I'll say that. running around.
So if you could meet or speak to anyone in the world, who would it be?
Ooh. Anyone in the world. I would say Kobe, but unfortunately, we lost him. Anyone in the world. I always like to think about these ones. From a sporting standpoint, I actually think it would be LeBron. If I could choose anyone from a sporting standpoint, it would be LeBron. Because the one thing I admire about LeBron, apart from being one of the best basketball player on the planet, maybe not now, getting older, but I'm still the greatest of all time, potentially. The fact that through all of this stuff, like, we look at, I'll get messages on my phone sometimes from people that don't like horse racing or like yesterday, the phone will blow up with all these people, and then everyone's entitled to their opinion. I don't reply to them. I don't say anything. You can have your opinion. I'll just leave it. I'm not going to reply to it. But such is when you work in the gambling space, you're always going to get a bit of that.
Yeah.
But the fact that LeBron, like, you look at LeBron cops so much unnecessary hate for no reason. Yet it just doesn't faze him at all. He doesn't care. He just keeps going. He doesn't, usually doesn't even make a note of it. Sometimes he just laughs on Instagram and says, "What is my life?" Like, that's I think I got a lot of admiration for the fact that a guy like that can just completely block out. Like, I can't imagine the frustration of being one of the best basketball players of all time, but then just consistently disrespected in the media and that sort of stuff. So I think, I reckon LeBron. What about you?
In the world.
See, it's a tough one, isn't it?
I know, sporting point. I think I've got my standards at the moment at someone like Josh Giddy. I'm obsessed with Josh Giddy, and I can't get enough of watching him, how he moves to the bucket, and he's worked on his 3-point game so much over between the NBL and the NBA season. I'm hoping to get him on here soon.
Oh, you'll get him on, I reckon. You're gonna have everyone in Australia at some point. You got the best podcast library of any host.
Thank you. Now, where's your favorite place you've been for basketball?
Favorite place? I would probably say outside of America, because obviously America is the favorite place. I love going to these different. I'll give you my best and my worst. The best, obviously, in America would be Austin, Texas, when we played against the Longhorns. Absolutely loved it over there. I loved it over in Kaunas, Prague. Yeah. Prague was really cool. So Prague, a bit of a history lesson. The war stopped on both sides of Prague. So it was all the architecture and everything there is pristine, whereas everything else got destroyed sort of around it. So they just got saved in the middle there. But it's just an unbelievable, like, you look at it and you're like, it looks like it's a postcard. When you're standing there. The worst place I have ever played is North Dakota. Now, it is so cold in North Dakota when we were there that you are not allowed to be outside for more. They stay in the hotel. They're like, people aren't to be outside for more than 30 seconds. What? Because it was so cold. Wow. You walk outside and your skin feels like it just goes like I can't even explain the feeling of and the wind coming there. Because obviously, being an arrogant Australian that thinks they're tougher than everyone when you go over there, you go, I'll wear a tracksuit. That'll be fine. Yeah. And it just pierces through it. And it's like, you get to the gym, it's like, it doesn't matter how much heating you've got there, it's still cold. And, the people are yelling at you in the crowd, and you're like, you live here. Like, how can you can't yell at me. You live here. It sucks. There's nothing that I can do on this court that makes me worse off than you. That sort of thing. So I always had bad games there because I hated being there. We played there twice a year. So it was definitely North Dakota. One place I will never be back. Yeah.
Who's the best basketballer you think who you've played with or against?
So I think that the person where I came up against him and I thought, okay, there's actively no way that we can stop this guy would be Shabazz Napier when he played for UConn in their national championship year. We came up against Shabazz Napier and we had kept him. And when I say we kept him to I think he had about 6 points with 10 minutes to go in the game. That he missed his shots. we didn't keep him to anything. He just missed his shots. But then we were like, we're in this. It was like a 3-point game. We lost by 30 in the final 10 minutes. I think he had 26 points. just you couldn't stop him. And that was the year that LeBron was talking about him, saying we want to get him. And then LeBron said, I want him at Miami. He got drafted to Miami, and LeBron leaves the next day. So, maybe he does get some necessary criticism. But no, I think it'd be Shabazz Napier. He was the hardest where you look at it like, okay, well, we sent 3 guys at him, and it didn't really pan out in the NBA for him. And some guys it doesn't, but he's definitely the guy where it's, okay, this guy is virtually impossible to stop. Jalil Okafor as well, that played for Philly. I'm not sure exactly where he's at now, but in the under-17s, he was the same damn size that he is now.
Yeah.
And we just like, okay, what do we do here? Nick Duncan, our center, who went to Boise State. Now he works as an accountant over in Boise. He does really well financially. I think he broke his nose twice that tournament because he was out undersized big, and he was just coming up against Jalil. So he was putting his body on the line for us. But yeah, definitely those two.
What do you think who's the best player you've actually played with?
I'd say Ben Simmons.
Ben Simmons, yeah.
Maybe an unpopular person at the moment.
Yeah, at that time.
Yeah, in terms of a guy with just an innate ability to find the open man at his size, there's just nothing. There was nothing. In the NBA, there's athletes that can potentially get up against him. I think once he gets all his stuff sorted, he's going to be, back to his all-star ways. But yeah, he'd definitely be up there as just the absolute most talented individual player that I've ever been on the court with. And I'll tell you what, Mirko Jeric, that plays for Cairns, he's a really relaxed guy, but skill-wise, he's right up there as well. This guy was playing heavy minutes in the NBL at 16 years old.
Yeah.
Wollongong, when we were at the AIS. Now, he peaked really early, but again, just incredibly talented guy. He was right up there, taking it to Dante when we were at the AIS.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. So supremely talented.
Tomato sauce in the fridge or cupboard? Just to decide up.
In the cupboard.
In the cupboard.
In the cupboard.
Oh, no.
Sauce in the fridge because I'm going to. So here's the thing, Max.
Yeah.
If I've got myself a hot pie.
Yeah.
I'm not.
You don't want cold sauce on it. Yeah.
I'm not putting cold sauce on it. That's sick.
Yeah.
How do I leave this? How do I get out of here?
Just one last question before we go. What would be your best advice to anyone who wants to be a basketballer or media person and be successful like yourself?
I think from a basketball standpoint, and all of this stuff, I'll tell you what, this probably find your number one thing. So whether it's in a basketball sense, whether it's shooting the ball, whether it's in a media sense, for me, it's bringing a bit of liveliness to broadcast, being a bit sort of, racing. Usually it's a bit like that. I like to be up and about, making jokes about the names of some of these horses, stuff like that. Like it's find your one little thing that's going to make a point of difference. If you don't have a point of difference, then anyone can take your job. Anyone can come in there. Whereas if you create that point of difference in basketball, you may work on all your skills, of course, but if you're an elite shooter, an absolutely elite shooter, is there a market gap for that at the moment? You've got to be an elite shooter, but how many guys can just handle the ball like none other at the moment? I think that's the skill that we might be losing. So find that one thing where you say, okay, every single day, that's my go-to. It's like for me on air, if I'm unprepared or something, you know what? Well, I'm just going to bring a whole bunch more energy and make up for it. So just find the one thing that makes you different to the person next to you. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to go anywhere.
All right. Thanks, Felix, for coming on today. I really appreciate it. And for putting aside, I think it was an hour or so of your time to come on and have a chat. It's been an absolute honor. Thanks, mate. I absolutely love this as well. Love what you're doing with the podcast. And I reckon you better not be coming and taking my job in a few years' time. Thanks, Felix. Really appreciate it. Thanks, brother. Great job, mate. Thanks. Stay tuned, everyone, for more Sporting Max.